I was the kept woman of a gloomy villain. But I'm very lazy. The villain went bankrupt. The system appeared. It ordered me to humiliate him, to dump him dramatically so he'd ignite his fighting spirit and claw his way back to power. I refused. Christopher caught my chin between his fingers, his voice fierce. Everyone else has left me. Why are you still here? To laugh at my misery. I yawned, slow and unbothered, too lazy to move, let alone run. His eyes turned red, his voice low with self-loathing. I'm just a useless, penniless loser now. I can't give you the life you had before. I reached up and patted his head. All right, enough. Isn't all that talking exhausting? Come here. Let's just rest for a while. To keep me from starving, Christopher worked himself ragged. 3 jobs at once, every bone in his body burning with the effort. In the original story, when he should have been on a date with the female lead, Christopher was instead at home, down on one knee, tying the bow on the little dress I was wearing. The system screamed in my head, panicked. Girl, what's wrong with you? I was Luna Reed, the so-called kept woman of Metropolis Big Shot, Christopher Sterling. And I was lazy. People said Christopher hid me remarkably well. Even after years by his side, not a single photo of me existed online. That was mostly because I rarely left the house. Too lazy to bother. Our meeting had been an accident. After graduating college, I'd sent my resume to his company. Under desired position, I'd written, little work, lots of money. Under personal summary, I wrote, good at eating. Christopher stared at that resume for a long time, completely baffled. His curiosity got the better of him, so he interviewed me personally. I explained it plainly. It means good at eating, lazy at working. He frowned, confused. Then why didn't you just write the whole phrase? I sipped my water and answered slowly. Too lazy to write. The interview was a disaster. Yet somehow I still got the job. Christopher needed to dodge an arranged marriage, and I, being weak, tired, and uninterested in most things, fit his requirements perfectly. Lots of money, little work, could work from home was my dream arrangement. Walking 2 steps made me want to squat down. Standing too long made me see stars. Sleeping, though, was my specialty. Christopher found this very useful. He was sensitive and gloomy, scarred by a cold childhood, isolated at school, betrayed in business. Paranoid, wound tight, often unable to sleep. But when he pulled me into his arms at night, burying his face in my hair, he'd relax. He'd fall asleep soundly, night after night. I didn't have to do anything except exist, except sleep. Each morning, I woke up to gifts and bank transfers. It was the easiest job in the world. Until it wasn't. Christopher was framed and ruined. Bankrupt. He vanished for days, too busy dissolving his company, liquidating assets, paying off employees. He didn't even come home to say goodbye. Instead, he left me a message. I have no money left for a farewell payout. The gifts before were voluntary leave. I was devastated. I slept 15 hours straight. When I finally woke, a system appeared. It told me the truth. This was the world of a novel. Christopher Sterling was the gloomy villain, and I was nothing more than a plot-pushing tool. Right now, the system buzzed. You must act shallow and materialistic. Slap Christopher a few times, call him a useless loser, dump him. Only then will he make his comeback, reunite with his childhood sweetheart, the female lead, though by then she'll belong to the male lead. That's the start of a 200-chapter tragedy for the 3 of them. I rolled over and covered my ears. Exhausting. The system threatened me. If you fail, you'll be punished with electric shocks. Then shock me, I muttered. It fell silent. I wasn't stupid. If I truly ground Christopher's dignity into the dirt, once he made his comeback, he'd probably cut me into pieces. 3 days later, I finally sought him out. The fallen prince had traded his penthouse in the glittering city center for a dark, cramped tenement. He lay sprawled on the floor, unshaven, drowning in smoke and alcohol, utterly defeated. When he saw me, he laughed bitterly. I thought you'd left. Why come back? Did you miss something valuable when you looted the place? I shook my head and handed him a bank card. While I was gone, I contacted luxury resellers. This should help with your debts. In his glory days, Christopher had showered me with gifts, clothes, bags, jewelry, watches, filling an entire room. His voice trembled. You wouldn't even unwrap that stuff. And you sold it all. The truth was, I had been too lazy to unwrap them, which was exactly why they sold at pristine, untouched prices. But if he wanted to think otherwise, I wouldn't bother correcting him. Right then, my stomach growled loudly. I tried to cover the awkwardness with a quiet murmur. I don't eat much. I won't be a burden. Please don't make me leave. After all, bosses like him were rare. Christopher sniffled, then nodded. Okay. He went downstairs and bought us a $5 combo meal from a hole-in-the-wall diner. Christopher pushed the takeout container toward me. For himself, he pulled out nothing more than plain bread and a few pickled vegetables. See this? His tone was flat, but his eyes betrayed him. I'm useless and penniless. If you stay with me, this is your life now. I wasn't fazed. What's wrong with this food? I pointed at each item one by one. Carbs, protein, dietary fiber. Pretty balanced. And seriously, $5 for ribs? This guy's practically running a charity. I snapped the plastic fork in half and handed most of the ribs to him. My logic was simple. I burned very few calories because I spent most of my day lying down. No need to eat much. His eyes reddened further. Are you really okay with this? But before, with me you ate. Yeah, I answered lazily. Back then, every meal had been cooked by Michelin star chefs. Western, Japanese, Thai, lobster, sea cucumber, king crab, an endless spread. But chewing was tiresome. I usually had everything blended into puree so I could drink it. Now impossible, I added. That blender got repossessed. Along with the penthouse. I bit into the ribs. These taste better than puree, anyway. Christopher met my clear gaze and sighed. His words tumbled out in a rush. Fine. I spoiled you before. You don't know what real hardship is. You'll understand eventually. Your youth is precious. Wasted on me. If you regret it, leave any time. I won't touch a cent of that card money. Bankruptcy was my fault. My debt alone to shoulder. Headache. That was what he was giving me. The old Christopher had been aloof, brooding, a man of few words. The new Christopher was a full-blown worrywart, nagging like a strict dad. I reached out and patted his head, cutting him off. All right, enough. Isn't all that rambling exhausting? Your eyes are bloodshot. You haven't slept properly in days, right? Come here. Let's get some proper rest. Before the bank sealed the penthouse, I'd packed a small suitcase. They had only let me take a few cheap personal items, but I'd thought carefully and chosen a pillow and duvet. However tough things got, good sleep was always the first step to facing the next day. The bedding was soft, warm, cloud-like. I slipped under, comforted instantly. But Christopher didn't hold me that night. For the first time, he turned away, shoulders shaking, muffling quiet sobs. Just as I drifted off, he pressed a kiss to the top of my head. Luna, I will give you a good life again. From that day on, Christopher found his resolve. He drove himself mercilessly, juggling 3 jobs, errands by day, ghostwriting business plans for students by night, then running food deliveries in the few hours left. One night, after closing his laptop, he said, "If I don't hustle harder, you might starve." Truth was, I wasn't worried about starving. I was busy researching ways to make money while lying down. Research made me sleepy, though, so I gave up and burrowed under the covers. Then inspiration struck. I set up a live stream camera. Title, Sleeping Island. Within minutes, I was out cold. At first, viewers thought it was a gimmick. A username popped up. Thanks, boss. A virtual rose floated across the screen. No reaction. Another sent sunglasses. Still nothing. Stubbornness kicked in. Rainbow paper airplanes, hot air balloons, higher and higher value gifts, all in hopes of waking me. Crowds gathered, chatting nonstop. She's putting on airs. Why so many viewers? Boring. But she sleeps so peacefully. That bedding looks comfy. Link. Once in pajamas, please. When I finally woke up, I had $100 in revenue and an offer from a pajama brand. A miracle. I was thrilled. This meant Christopher wouldn't need to exhaust himself with food deliveries. I was just about to share the good news when the system returned. The last time I'd heard from it, it had cursed me out, useless Pro Max, before rage quitting. But now it sounded excited. Girl, you're a legend. My bad for yelling before. Chanel, you're a wild card. I blinked. I didn't do anything. Exactly. The system shouted. That's why you're a wild card. Because you did nothing, the plot went off track. Christopher isn't just motivated now. Tonight, while delivering food, he got an order in an upscale neighborhood. He met the female lead, his childhood sweetheart, way ahead of schedule. My heart sank. So it couldn't be avoided. Did that mean I had to leave now? A cold realization hit me. Everything in this world followed a script. No matter how much I resisted, what was written would happen. I accepted it calmly. Too lazy to fight. What's Christopher's childhood sweetheart like? I asked. The system explained. Sophia Reed, his high school desk mate. Studious, gentle, loyal. She had stood by him when others mocked him, tutored him despite the gossip. When his gambler father blew his tuition, nearly forcing him to drop out, Sophia had lent him money from her own living expenses. Christopher never told me any of this. When I asked about his past, he'd just pat my head and murmur, "Old scars. No need to pick at them." For some reason, hearing about her made me sad. A rival in love, yet I felt no jealousy. Anyone would like Sophia. She was genuinely good. I thought I'll leave. Make space for them. My nose tingled. But before going, I wanted to know one thing. What about my ending? You owe me that much. The system hesitated. Sorry. You're just a plot device. The author didn't write your future. But this world's flexible. You can explore it. No way, I muttered. Exploring sounded exhausting. I wanted security, a cozy and lazy future. So, I negotiated. I softened my voice, put on my best pitiful face. I might be minor, but I'm still the author's creation. Can you ask the brilliant, beautiful author to write me a good ending, please? The system faltered under my flattery. I'll petition the higher-ups. Then it vanished. Shortly after, Christopher returned. He was an hour and a half later than usual. Maybe because of the reunion. Seeing me awake, he looked startled. I probed carefully. Where were you tonight? He froze, then forced a smile. No, I can't hide anything from you, sweetheart. He pulled his left hand from behind his back. In it was a fancy paper bag, holding a charlotte cake. Strawberry flavor. A memory surfaced. Strawberry charlotte cake. Christopher had once mentioned it in passing, something about his high school days. I remembered it vaguely, but now, seeing the box in his hands, the connection stirred. Christopher set the cake box carefully on the wobbly table, as if it were a priceless artifact instead of sugar and cream. His expression was oddly stiff, like he had rehearsed this moment and forgotten half the lines. I thought you liked sweets, he said, forcing a little smile. I tilted my head. Do I? You always seemed, well, I just thought. He cleared his throat and busied himself with the box, peeling back the lid as if the plastic window might save him from my gaze. Inside sat a perfect strawberry charlotte, glossy red fruit glistening against whipped cream. It looked beautiful, decadent, unnecessary. I propped my chin on my hand, watching him fumble with the knife. You went out of your way for this? Christopher's fingers tightened around the handle. It wasn't out of my way. In my head, the system screamed. That's Sophia's cake. His childhood sweetheart's favorite. That was never meant for you. I stabbed a fork straight into the charlotte and scooped up a bite. The system's shrill panic only made the cream taste sweeter. Christopher froze, like I'd broken some sacred ritual. Don't you want a plate? I chewed slowly, lazily. Why dirty dishes? His mouth opened, shut. A flush crept up his neck. For someone once feared as a ruthless businessman, he was utterly defenseless against casual sloth. I swallowed and flicked my fork again. So, this cake, why now? He avoided my eyes, cutting a too neat slice for himself. Because you deserve it. Emichim. I leaned back, studying him through half-lidded eyes. Deserve or remind? His hand stilled mid-cut. A flicker of something crossed his expression. Nostalgia, guilt, maybe both. Then he forced it away, sliding the slice onto a paper napkin. You're reading too much into things. I licked cream from the fork, unbothered. Reading takes effort. Not my style. The system shrieked again, desperate. Girl, ask him directly. Confront him. It's Sophia's cake. But confrontation sounded exhausting. I just kept eating. Christopher sat across from me, tense, as if every bite I took chipped away at some secret he couldn't hide. His eyes softened, though, watching me enjoy the simplest thing in the dingy little apartment as if it were the world's rarest delicacy. I yawned, stretched, and gave my verdict. Figures. Even desserts are exhausting competitions. The next morning, Christopher said he needed to run an errand downtown. I happened to shuffle into my slippers at the same time, hugging a pillow to my chest. You're coming, he asked, brows lifting. Accident. I said flatly. My feet moved. He sighed, but he didn't send me back. Which was how I ended up following him through the busier streets, half asleep, head pillowed against the glass of a taxi window. We had just stepped into a quiet bookstore when a soft voice drifted over. Chris. Christopher stiffened instantly. My eyes cracked open, heavy-lidded. She stood by the display table, graceful even in casual clothes. Dark hair tucked neatly behind her ears, books balanced in her arms like they belonged there. Sophia read. I didn't need the system to tell me who she was. I could tell just by the way Christopher's posture changed, tension coiling in his frame. Sophia's eyes lit up when she saw him. It really is you. You look healthier these days, Chris. Christopher's mouth worked soundlessly. He seemed at a loss, caught between old memories and present reality. I let out a long yawn and leaned my head against his shoulder, heavy and careless. Because he sleeps. Sophia blinked, startled. She hadn't noticed me until that moment. Her gaze flicked to my wrinkled pajamas, my messy bun threatening to collapse, the pillow still clutched under my arm. In any other company, I would have looked ridiculous. But Christopher's hand moved instinctively, steadying me so I wouldn't slump forward. His shoulders loosened, the stiffness melting into something softer. Yeah, he murmured under his breath, so quiet I almost didn't catch it. Sophia's smile wavered. She adjusted the books in her arms. I'm glad. You deserve peace, Chris. I closed my eyes again, drifting at the edge of sleep, but even through the fog I could feel the tension buzzing between them. The history, the weight of what could have been. The system hissed in my ear, agitated. This is bad. Bad. Sophia's supposed to trigger his tragic arc. You're ruining the flow. I ignored it, snuggling deeper into Christopher's shoulder. He smelled faintly of cigarette smoke and cheap soap, but beneath it was something steady, something warm. Sophia lowered her gaze. I'll let you go then. It was good to see you. Christopher hesitated. His lips parted, as though he wanted to say more. But my grip on his sleeve tightened unconsciously, and he stopped. Yeah, he said finally. Good to see you too. Sophia gave a small, wistful smile before walking away, the sound of her steps fading into the quiet of the shop. I didn't open my eyes, but I whispered anyway. She's pretty. Christopher froze. You were awake? Barely. I yawned. Pretty's exhausting. Can we go home? His laugh was low, almost inaudible, but his hand brushed over mine, gentle, as if anchoring himself in the present. That night, after Christopher fell asleep beside me, the system barged into my head like an over-caffeinated salesman. Girl, do you even understand what you've done? You're derailing everything. I rolled over, tugging the duvet tighter. Comfortable. Don't ignore me. Look, if you won't follow the script, fine. Let's negotiate. I'll give you a skill pack. Chef edition. You'll be able to cook Michelin-star meals in your sleep. I cracked one eye open. Cooking? That means standing. Okay. How about lawyer pack? You'll destroy your enemies in court, all from behind a desk. Desk sounds hard. Fine. CEO pack. Power suits, skyscrapers, unlimited credit cards. People will tremble before you. I yawned so wide my jaw popped. Meetings. Paperwork. Talking to people. Next. The system sputtered. You're impossible. Do you even want a good ending? Good ending equals no effort. I burrowed further under the blanket. Got anything useful? There was a long pause. Then, cautiously. Pillow fort skill pack. My eyes opened. Explain. Unlimited pillow stacking ability. Fluffy fortress construction. Ergonomic design. You could nap in style, impervious to the world's chaos. I actually considered it. A fortress where no one could drag me into plotlines? Tempting. And bonus upgrade. Your pillow fort will repel negativity, arguments, even system interference. So basically, I could sleep forever uninterrupted. Exactly. I hummed thoughtfully. Acceptable. But I require pajama brand sponsorship integration. And a snack dispenser. The system groaned like it wanted to die. You're negotiating like a mob boss. Too lazy for crime, I murmured. But pillows, that's worth talking about. Silence followed. I smirked to myself, half asleep already. Even the system was learning. If it wanted me to move, it had to make sloth more efficient. Christopher came home later than usual, but this time, he wasn't slumped with exhaustion. His eyes were clear, sharp, the way I imagined they must have looked back in his prime. He dropped a folder onto the rickety kitchen table, the papers fanning out like a winning hand of cards. I landed the deal. I blinked from the couch, where I'd been building a pillow fort prototype with questionable engineering. Deal? He nodded, chest rising with something that looked dangerously close to pride. A supplier tried to cheat me, inflate prices, hide faulty inventory. I caught every loophole in their contract, cornered them, and walked away with twice the value for half the cost. They'll think twice before trying that with me again. For a moment, the air around him felt different, charged, electric. The defeated man in a tenement apartment was gone, replaced by someone sharper, colder. The man people once called ruthless villain. Even I sat up a little straighter. His dark eyes glittered, his lips curving into the faintest smirk. He was glowing with a kind of charisma that could make or break empires. I squinted at him, unimpressed. Scary. Don't overdo it. Stress kills sleep quality. Christopher blinked, then, unexpectedly, he laughed. Really laughed. The sound startled even him. He leaned against the counter, shaking his head. Only you would say that. Truth, I mumbled, flopping back into my pillows. Glowing men are stressful. His gaze softened. For the first time in weeks, the shadows seemed to lift from him. He looked at me not as someone clinging to his side, but as the only person who saw him as human, not status. Luna, he said quietly, still smiling, you're the only one who worries about me, instead of what I can give them. I yawned, already sinking back toward sleep. Worrying is exhausting. Just don't ruin my nap schedule. His laugh came again, low and genuine. For once, the sound filled the small apartment with something brighter than despair. A few days later, when Christopher was out chasing another job lead, the doorbell rang. I shuffled over, dragging my blanket with me like a royal cape. When I cracked the door open, I expected the landlord or maybe another flyer stuffing kid. Instead, Sophia stood there. She looked exactly as she had in the bookstore. Neat hair, calm eyes, books tucked under her arm. But here, without Christopher as a buffer, her presence felt heavier, deliberate. I blinked at her. Delivery? She smiled gently. No, may I come in for a moment? I hesitated, but standing was tiring, so I opened the door wider and shuffled back toward the couch. Sophia slipped inside, closing the door softly behind her. She didn't look around the shabby apartment with disdain. Her eyes were steady, almost warm. We sat in silence for a beat. She folded her hands neatly in her lap before speaking. Christopher was my best friend, she said finally, her voice calm but carrying the weight of years. We grew up together. I always thought, maybe one day, that would mean more. I hugged my blanket tighter, watching her through half-lidded eyes. Sophia continued, her smile faint but unwavering. But when I saw him with you, he looked different. Lighter. I want to see him happy, even if it's not with me. Her words landed softly, without bitterness, without rivalry. Just quiet acceptance. For a moment, my chest tightened in an unfamiliar way. Sophia was the type of person who made the world kinder just by existing. It was hard not to like her. Still, sincerity was exhausting. I let out a slow sigh. You're too good. Stop raising the standard. It makes me tired. Sophia blinked, then laughed, soft and surprised. I see why he likes you. I pulled the blanket over my head. Liking people takes energy. Don't spread rumors. Her laughter lingered as she rose to leave. Before stepping out, she glanced back, eyes kind but firm. Take care of him, please. I didn't answer, but under the blanket, I whispered to myself, he sleeps better with me. That's enough. It started with a headline on a gossip site. Once powerful Sterling reduced to nothing, his kept woman now live-streaming herself sleeping for money. By evening, it had spread across half the city. Screenshots of my sleeping island, channels circulated with snide commentary. What a joke. She just lies there like a corpse and people pay? Pathetic. Christopher stormed into the apartment, phone clenched in his fist, eyes blazing. They're mocking you. They're mocking us. I was on the couch, tangled in my duvet, scrolling through the chat replay. Viewer counts up 30% since noon. Luna, this isn't a game. He dropped his phone onto the table so hard it rattled. They want to humiliate you. Drag you down with me. I yawned. Free publicity. They're doing my marketing for me. His jaw tightened. How can you just? Sure. I held up a finger, still scrolling. Look. Someone sent me 10,000 coins because I didn't move all night. They called me unshakable goddess. Isn't that funny? Christopher ran a hand through his hair, pacing like a caged lion. It's not funny. You don't deserve this. From inside my head, the system screeched. This was supposed to humiliate you too, not turn into influencer marketing. Stop twisting the narrative. I ignored both of them, propping my chin on the pillow. Honestly, if sleeping pays the rent, why complain? You should try it. We could be a duo. Couples nap stream. Christopher froze mid-pace, staring at me like I'd just suggested selling his soul. Then, to my surprise, his lips twitched, the beginnings of a laugh he tried and failed to smother. You're impossible. His voice softened. But maybe that's what saves me. I patted the empty space beside me. Come on. Lie down. Double views if you're in frame. The fire in his eyes dimmed, replaced by something gentler. With a long exhale, he finally sat beside me. The system wailed in the background. I give up. You're turning a villain's downfall arc into a sleep influencer love story. It didn't take long before someone noticed me. A rival live streamer, flashy and loud, posted a challenge. Think she's the queen of sleep? Watch me pull off a 48-hour stunt marathon, and then we'll talk. The platform's algorithm started pushing her stream to my audience. Her lights, cameras, and constant shouting were supposed to drown me out. I yawned, rolled over, adjusted my pillow, hit the record button. The chat exploded. Queen of sleep. Even lazy wins when it's her. Look at her. Still asleep. Absolute icon. Christopher, in his corner office of a half-renovated apartment, paused his business plan drafting. He rubbed his eyes and peered at my stream, pride and worry mixing in his gaze. She's still lying down, he muttered. Exactly. The system squealed in my head, practically vibrating with panic. She's supposed to compete. She's supposed to be humiliated. I yawned again, one hand dangling lazily over the edge of the blanket. Competition? Nap quality over quantity. Meanwhile, the rival stream flopped spectacularly. Her attempts at stunts were flashy, exhausting, and chaotic. 1 minute she was skydiving, the next she tripped over a cable live on camera. Viewers began drifting towards Sleeping Island, leaving comments like, "Yeah, this girl is doing nothing and still wins. Respect the dedication to relaxation." Christopher's hand brushed over my streaming tablet, almost reverent. You're unstoppable in your own way. I mumbled into the pillow. Lazy can be powerful. But don't tell anyone. Reputation matters. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. The world is going to learn that the quietest victories are the deadliest. I rolled onto my side, chin resting on my hands, blissfully watching the chaos of the platform unfold around me. Even rivals could only fuel my legend while I slept. The system shrieked one last time before going silent. Impossible. She's literally doing nothing and winning. I smiled in my sleep. Mission accomplished. That night, the apartment was quiet except for the hum of the city outside and the faint rustle of my blanket. Christopher sat on the edge of the bed, fingers drumming lightly against his knees. He hadn't asked me to move, but I knew he was thinking. I peeked one eye open. What's with this serious face? You look like you're plotting world domination or folding laundry. He didn't laugh. His eyes were steady, conflicted. Luna, if I truly fall again, fall for someone, will you stay? I yawned, tugging the blanket up to my chin. As long as you don't snore too loud. A faint flush crept up his neck. He bit back a laugh, then exhaled slowly, relief threading through the tension in his shoulders. You make everything sound simple, even the hard choices. I rolled over onto my side, facing him lazily. I don't do hard choices. They take effort. But peace? That I can manage. You're allowed to pick that too. He smiled quietly, letting the weight of his indecision fall away. For the first time in months, the ghosts of the past, Sophia, the ruin, the betrayal, felt distant. Luna, lying half asleep in his arms, was the anchor he didn't realize he needed. Then, I choose peace, he murmured. And it seems, somehow, you're part of it. I hummed, a faint, contented sound. Guess I am. But only because peace doesn't require moving. He chuckled softly, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. The decision was quiet, unspoken in many ways, yet solid. Together, we could face whatever mess the world or the system threw at us. And I could nap, uninterrupted. The lights in the apartment flickered briefly, just long enough to make the hum of the fridge sound ominous. Then, The system's voice boomed inside my head like a disgruntled orchestra conductor. Bad news, girl. The author rejected my petition. You're still a side character. Your ending is erased. I blinked at the ceiling, barely moving a muscle. Figures. A pause. Then, quietly, Christopher's voice came from the doorway. What ending? I froze. He had been home all along, apparently hearing more than I assumed. I rolled onto my side, burying my face in the pillow, careful not to make eye contact. It's nothing, I muttered lazily. Just plot stuff. Don't worry your head about it. He crossed the room, hands in his pockets, stopping at the foot of the bed. Luna, you're always mumbling about weird things. What is it? I let out a slow yawn, thinking through the endless possibilities. Do I tell him about the system? About the author? About the fact that the world literally expects me to sabotage him for a plot twist? Each option seemed more exhausting than the last. Christopher crouched beside me, one hand brushing a strand of hair from my face. Whatever it is, you can tell me. I can handle it. I blinked at him, half asleep but alert enough to sense the tension in the air. His eyes, so calm, so steady, made the choice harder. If I told him, the game would change. The system would panic. Sophia's arc, the villain comeback, the entire narrative rewritten by a lazy woman and the man who refused to let the world crush him. I sighed, curling back into the pillow. Maybe tomorrow, I muttered. Stories are exhausting. And honestly, I'm very tired. Christopher frowned slightly, but didn't press further. He leaned back on the floor, watching me with quiet intensity. Inside my head, the system screamed like it had lost its mind. She can't just ignore it. She's supposed to drive the plot. This is unacceptable. I yawned again, thinking, maybe I can rewrite it later. Or not. Sleep first. Always sleep first. And there it was, the pause before the storm. The choice. Tell him the truth, or stay lazy, keeping our little bubble of peace intact. The next morning, Christopher was already awake, papers spread across the table, plotting his next move against the people who had ruined him. I remained cocooned in my pillow fort, blinking slowly at the sunlight streaming through the cracked blinds. The system buzzed angrily in my head. Girl, you're sleeping while the plot dies. Move. Act. Sabotage. I yawned. Moving is exhausting. But maybe not moving could be strategic. A notification pinged on my laptop. My live stream numbers had skyrocketed overnight, viewers commenting things like, "Sleeping genius strikes again." And she's untouchable, literally. Even a rival streamer from before had apparently lost half her followers. I peeked at Christopher. You know my doing nothing could be useful? He looked up, squinting at me. What are you suggesting? I yawned, stretching. Enemies expect chaos. They expect action. They want drama. But I don't move. I nap. They get frustrated. They overreach. You strike. Christopher's eyes narrowed, comprehension dawning. You're saying my comeback isn't just about me fighting back. It's about letting them exhaust themselves while we stay calm. I hummed in approval. Exactly. Lazy and smart. Unstoppable combo. Consider it meta strategy. The system screeched in protest. No. This breaks the story. You're supposed to humiliate him first, not help him regain power. This is outrageous. I ignored it, picking up a half-eaten cookie. Maybe offer me snacks while we do this. Even strategists need comfort. Christopher shook his head, though a small smile tugged at his lips. You're insane and somehow brilliant. From that moment, we became an odd alliance. I stayed in my fort, providing nothing but calm and distraction for the system. Christopher moved through his contacts, negotiating deals, exposing corruption, quietly regaining his foothold. Occasionally, he'd glance at me, pride and amusement shining in his eyes. And I, still wrapped in blankets, would yawn, thinking, maybe doing nothing is the most powerful thing in the story. The system groaned somewhere between panic and awe. I quit. I can't even. And for once, the world, and its narrative expectations, had to adjust to the lazy queen and her brooding villain. Christopher's enemies thought they knew him. They didn't. They also thought they knew me. They were very wrong. It all started with an anonymous tip. Sterling's kept woman is still live streaming. She's weak. Exploit her. The rival company sent in an undercover investigator, a flashy, overconfident type who clearly expected me to be fragile, reactive, and dramatic. I was lying in my pillow fort, half asleep, scrolling the chat. The system panicked. They're going to expose you. You're supposed to flail. I ignored it. My fort was strategically positioned so the camera caught me yawning lazily, blankets draped perfectly, pillows stacked just so. The investigator crept through the apartment shadows, stepping on squeaky floorboards. The chat noticed first. Wait, someone sneaking behind her. Is this a live heist? Queen of Sleep. Remain unbothered. The investigator froze, noticing the live comments. A quick glance at the camera, then back at me. My eyes fluttered open lazily. Oh, hi, I murmured, still lying down, barely moving. He stumbled backward, tripping over the last pillow strategically left on the floor. Cameras rolled, the chat exploded, and he scrambled like a cat trapped in a box. Christopher, monitoring from his laptop in the next room, whispered, almost amused. They underestimate her, as usual. I yawned, stretching, and reached for a cookie. Classic mistake. They think action equals victory. Nap equals weakness. The system screamed incoherently. This is impossible. You're supposed to be humiliated, not win. How? Christopher laughed quietly, shaking his head. It's not the fights you expect that decide battles, it's the ones you don't notice. I blinked at him. And the snacks help. By the time the investigator scrambled out, humiliated and covered in pillows, the chat was erupting with applause emojis and crown stickers. Sleeping genius strikes again. The system muttered in the background, somewhere between despair and disbelief. She's literally doing nothing and still beating them. I smiled in my fort, watching Christopher close another deal quietly, our enemies none the wiser that their greatest defeat came from a woman who couldn't even be bothered to stand. The apartment was quiet, except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the distant honking of the city. I lay in my pillow fort, strategically propped with 3 extra cushions for optimal nap positioning. Christopher was across the room, laptop open, running through contacts and reviewing business reports. The system, as usual, exploded in my head. Girl, you're wasting your chance. They're moving against you. Act. Work. I yawned, one hand lazily reaching for a cookie. Acting is exhausting. Sleeping is tactical. I realized something. My naps weren't just resting. They were a tool. By remaining motionless at precisely calculated times, I could manipulate the world around me. Our rival live streamers would panic at my inactivity, desperately trying stunts to outdo me. Christopher's competitors would overreach, believing I was too idle to influence anything. The system itself would lose control, flailing as I refused to comply. I grinned faintly, half asleep. Strategic. Efficiency equals minimal movement. The chat exploded on Sleeping Island. She's winning while napping. Absolute queen of sleep. Even inaction is lethal. I bowed to her. Christopher looked up from his laptop, eyes wide. I should have known your naps would be weaponized. I waved a hand lazily. I call it passive strategy. Minimal energy, maximum effect. The system shrieked. This is impossible. You're supposed to fail. You're supposed to be humiliated. I tugged the blanket over my head. Failure is exhausting. I prefer rest. Meanwhile, Christopher worked quietly beside me, assembling deals, negotiating quietly, letting my inaction force our enemies into mistakes. Each misstep they made, because of me, fed his comeback. I rolled onto my side, barely opening an eye, and watched the notifications flood in. A small smile tugged at my lips. Sometimes the best way to fight is nothing at all. The system went silent for a moment, likely reconsidering all of reality, and I drifted off, confident that my strategic naps had just rewritten a small corner of the world. I was still lying in my pillow fort, strategically draped blankets and extra cushions forming what could generously be called a fortress. The system buzzed violently in my head. Enough. This is your last warning. Follow the script, or I will delete Christopher's comeback. Erase his reputation. I blinked slowly, propping my chin on a pillow. Threats are exhausting. Maybe try kindness instead. Impossible. It shrieked, sounding like a toddler trying to crush a piano with its bare hands. You are supposed to sabotage him, not empower him. I yawned, stretching an arm lazily toward my snack tray. Negotiations. I'm only willing to comply if you also upgrade my pillow fort to castle status. Minimum effort, maximum comfort. The system sputtered, static hissing in protest. That is out of scope. You are cheating the plot. From the edge of the fort, Christopher's voice rang out, steady and surprisingly firm. Enough. I peeked one eye open. Speaking of enough? He ignored me and addressed the system directly. She decides her own story now. All of it. If you try to push her, you're overruled. The system screamed incoherently, then stuttered. But this is unfair. The plot. The drama. Christopher leaned against the pillow fort, arms crossed, voice quiet but deadly serious. She's earned her ending. Let her nap in peace. I gave a slow, approving nod. Good decision. Very wise. The system finally went silent. Somewhere in the digital void, it probably collapsed in despair. I, however, settled back into my blankets, satisfied. My pillow fort was officially, metaphorically, and literally unassailable. Christopher, sitting nearby, closed his laptop with a satisfied sigh, shaking his head at me. You really do nothing and change everything, don't you? I yawned again. Master of minimal effort. And in that moment, with the system neutralized and our enemies stumbling over themselves, I drifted off into a nap that would go down in history, quiet, undefeated, and utterly lazy. The city had slowly shifted back into rhythm. Christopher's rivals, exhausted and humbled by their own overreach, were quietly neutralized. Deals had been closed, reputations restored, and the rumor mills quieted, mostly because everyone had learned that attempting to manipulate Sleeping Island was a losing game. I remained in my pillow fort, strategically positioned on the sofa. A faint smile tugged at my lips as I glanced at Christopher, who was moving through his office papers with quiet precision. He paused, catching my eye. You really did all this while sleeping? He asked softly, disbelief and pride in equal measure. I yawned, stretching one arm lazily. Multitasking. Professional napper. He shook his head, laughing softly, then pulled me gently onto the couch beside him. You're impossible and somehow brilliant. The world didn't see it coming, but I did. I snuggled under a blanket, resting my head on his shoulder. Predictable. That's how I operate. Minimal effort, maximum comfort. Christopher wrapped an arm around me, pressing a light kiss to my temple. You didn't just survive the story, you changed it. And somehow, we both won. From somewhere deep in the metavoid, the system emitted a faint, defeated sigh. I resign. I hummed in contentment. I'm good. Everyone can take a nap. Peaceful endings are underrated. Outside, the city moved on. Sophia, wise and gracious, remained a friend and ally. The world had expected chaos, betrayal, and drama. Instead, it got something it hadn't anticipated. Quiet triumph, lazy strategy, and a couple who had learned the art of surviving and thriving without unnecessary stress. Christopher tilted his head down toward me. So, what now? I blinked slowly, half asleep, a grin spreading lazily. Now? Nap. Eat. Watch the world, try to keep up. He chuckled, pressing a final kiss to my forehead. Then let's do it together. And there it was. The story's ending, quiet, undefeated, completely unconventional, and perfectly lazy. Some battles didn't need drama, some victories didn't need effort, and some love didn't even need words, just presence, trust, and a well-timed nap. The final thought drifted through my half-conscious mind. Some endings don't require chaos, just proper rest. And with that, I slept, victorious.